Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown and predictions video. We're coming off a good bounce back week last week at UFC Charlotte. We won over 6 units on the Patreon, so that was really good. And if you want to get access to all my bets this week, you know where to go, patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. This week, we actually got a free trial going on, so no risk. If you go over there, you could sign up for free for 7 days. You could get access to the 13 bets that I do have already for UFC Vegas 73. This card specifically is one of my biggest betting cards of the year. I'm pretty confident on quite a few spots, and I feel like we're going to make some money this week. So it's a free trial, and it'd be a great week to go over there, give it a chance, try it out, and see if you want to make yourself a full-time member on the Patreon. So really urge everyone to go over there, patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru, and check that out. But besides that, man, this card, Angela Hill versus Mackenzie Dern, is the main event. Kind of a lackluster card overall, but like I said, from a betting value perspective, I feel like the card is definitely a good one. And we're going to get right into it here, man. This first fight of the night with Takashi Sato and Themba Gorimbo, I feel like it's likely a loser leaves town match. More so for Takashi Sato, who he has 3 losses in a row, but Gorimbo, he's 0-2 in the UFC. Or he's 0-1, but he has to avoid trying to go 0-2. And Sato, he's 2-4, 6 UFC fights that he's had. And he has fought some stiff competition, though. I mean, he's fought Brian Battle. He fought Gunnar Nelson, Miguel Baeza, Bilal Muhammad. So he's been in there against some heavy hitters. But Themba Gorimbo, he came in there against more lower-level competition in A.J. Fletcher. And previous to the UFC, he hasn't really fought or beat anyone elite. So if you look at it from who's had the better opponents, it's been Takashi Sato by far. But Gorimbo, to me, is kind of an underachiever so far in his career. He has a great frame for the weight, super long, tall, athletic, 77-inch reach. He throws good straight punches, fast jabs. His check hook is good too, and he has good front kicks, round kicks. When he's calm and he stays at distance, his striking can look good, and he can be very fast and fluid, but he tends to be uncomfortable on the feet. He makes mistakes. He'll overextend on his strikes. He closes the distance unnecessarily, and he's more comfortable on the ground, even if he's on his back. So I don't really ever seen him ever being a good distance striker, really, because I just don't think he's going to get that ability to be composed on the feet at this point in his career, more than likely. But he's a very active wrestler, grappler, good timing on his level changes, nice singles, nice doubles. He can shoot bad takedowns sometimes that put him on his back, but I would say his wrestling is pretty good and superior than Takashi Sato's. And once Gorimbo gets in a top position, more of a lay and pray guy. He's not a big finisher. He does have 6 submission wins, but 5 of those submissions came in his first 5 fights against very low-level competition. And when he ends up on his back, Gorimbo, he can't get stuck there. He does attack the legs to try to sweep, and he was able to reverse A.J. Fletcher in his last fight and get to the back of A.J. Fletcher in the first and the second round, which I feel is pretty impressive because Fletcher is a decent enough grappler. He did end up losing position, and he shot in on a bad double and got guillotined. But in my opinion, he has a good skill set. He has good cardio. His intangibles are good, like the speed, the athleticism, the reach, but just has poor fight IQ at times. He can lack composure. At 32 years old, I don't know if he's ever going to be reaching his full potential, but he's training at MMA Masters now, which is a solid gym, so we'll see how far they can take him here. And Takashi Sato, his opponent, he is not a tough fighter to prepare for. You know he's going to go in there looking to pressure forward, bounce in and out of range, and that southpaw stance, try to land the pull two, very clean jabs and crosses. He'll attack the body to try to open up the headshots, but isn't active, doesn't do much out of the 1-2s. He stays composed, and he's shown the power to make fighters pay if they make a mistake. Sometimes he'll mix in some leg kicks, but really, if you can avoid that 1-2 against Sato, you're going to be fine. And his wrestling and grappling look average at best. Sato he's been fighting high-level grapplers, so it's tough to be super hard on him, but in certain fights, he's had good takedown defense, like the Bilal fight, and he's had bad takedown defense in other ones, though, where he just hasn't looked quite as good. He got dominated on the ground for 3 rounds against Gunnar Nelson. He's been submitted twice, and in order to win this fight, he has to control distance, keep Gorimbo off him, and keep it on the feet. Cardio isn't an issue for Sato. He's a veteran. He fights the same style every time. But this, to me, is a fight that Themba Gorimbo should win. He has the length advantage on the feet. He's going to be facing a fighter who's low volume, who's predictable. I feel like Gorimbo should be able to be smart in the stand-up, time the takedowns, get to the back and control the position and route to a decision. And he could for sure lose because of his fight IQ, and if he starts to make big actions and shoot bad takedowns, maybe he could get clipped. But I think Gorimbo's going to get the job done here. Sato, he's coming off a brutal knockout loss, 3 losses in a row, and it should be right for Gorimbo to win his first UFC fight. So I'm going to go with Gorimbo here to win this one, and I think he's going to do it by decision. And for this next matchup, we got the return of Natalia Silva, who looked really good in her first 2 UFC fights. She's taking on Victoria Leonardo. And Victoria Leonardo, she's in for a tough one here as she's fighting one of the best female prospects in the UFC. She's a crazy underdog. I mean, I don't agree with the line. I don't think you could value Silva at a minus 1,000, but I do think she's definitely up against it, and it's a very, very tough matchup for Leonardo. But she is coming off a victory over Mandy Bohm, someone who to me is not UFC level, and we just saw her kind of sneak a UFC win last week that I thought was complete bullshit. But before that, Leonardo had fought 2 top 15 fighters, Manon Farrow, Melissa Gatto, and she lost both those by finish. So this would be a big upset to me if Leonardo gets it done. Natalia Silva, I feel like she should have the attention of everyone in the 125-pound division. She beat Jasmine Judavicius, who's a strong fighter, someone that's proven to be maybe even a top 15 level opponent. And then in her last fight, she took out another, just like herself, high-level female prospect in Teresa Bleda. She had a super impressive performance in that fight, finished very late with a spinning back kick KO, and she's taking a step down in competition in this fight. I feel like the UFC is probably trying to build her up, get a showcase victory for her here. But I do think Leonardo is underrated. She isn't anything special, but she has great cardio. She is evasive. She has good movement, decent jab. She'll flurry combinations to get inside. She's tough, and she has solid overall wrestling. She can make it a grinding type of affair. Her cardio, like I said, is better than almost anyone that she fights, but the issue is her lack of athleticism or striking defense, and she's just not great in any area. She is a limited fighter, but she is someone that I feel like is small too for the weight. I feel like if she went down to 115, she could potentially be a little bit more successful. But for Natalia Silva, this girl's a beast. She's extremely athletic. She's well-rounded, and on the feet, she has great footwork, movement. She maintains distance really effectively. Her kicks, her long punches are very fast. She has super dangerous spinning attacks, and she doesn't brawl. She's difficult to track down or hit. She pulls fighters into her shots and just very high fight IQ on the feet. And she's also a great anti-grappler. She showed that in her last 2 fights. She shut down both girls who have pretty high-level wrestling, and her movement already makes it hard for fighters to even close the gap and try to take her down. She's super strong when you do shoot on her. Her balance is really good. She's good at reversing takedown to get in top position herself. And when she gets on top, she will throw big elbows. She has good cardio. Her last fight, she got a finish in the last minute of the fight. So overall, she looks like she could potentially move up the rankings quickly and be someone to watch. But Leonardo, I think she's better than given credit for, but this is an awful matchup. At distance, Silva is going to be way faster, more technical. I think she'll piece Leonardo up. In the clinch, Silva's stronger, more dangerous there. And I also see Silva shutting down all Leonardo's wrestling, cage pushing attempts, and even being able to get on top herself if she wants to do that. I don't see Silva getting tired. Leonardo's going to have to come into this fight looking completely different to be competitive, in my opinion. I'm going to pick Silva to win via second round knockout. It could go to decision because Leonardo is very tough, but I feel like Silva's aggressiveness and edge on the feet will lead to a stoppage. So I think Silva's a safe parlay piece, but man, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the line at minus 1,000. I wish it came down a little bit. And even the inside the distance and things like that, I was hoping that you could have maybe got Silva inside the distance at plus money, but the bookies are on it this week, man. You don't really got a lot of value here on this fight, but I do think Natalia Silva is going to get the job done pretty dominantly. And continuing on through the card here, we got the return of Chase Hooper, who's going to be moving up to 155 pounds for the first time in his UFC career, taking on Nick Fiore, who debuted in the UFC late last year and lost in a pretty one-sided fight against a guy that I think is a very good fighter, though, Mateusz Rebecki. But Chase Hooper, he had a 6-fight run at 145. He was, I believe, 3-3 in those 6 fights, if I remember correctly. But he had his ups and downs. He had good performances, bad performances. And now at 23 years old, he's going to be moving up to lightweight. And hopefully he'll come in here and maybe look a little bit better. One thing about Hooper is kind of a one-dimensional guy, and we all know his deficiencies at this point. So for opponents, it's easy to game plan for him and do what they need to do to beat him. But Hooper doesn't shortchange fans in effort, though, so I do expect him to fight hard and continue to get better. He's still only 23 years old. But Nick Fiore, he is a fighter from the Northeast regional scene. He trains with the New England Cartel, a high-level gym. They got Rafa, Calvin Cater, those guys. And he came in his last fight undefeated. He ran into Mateusz Rebecki, like I said, who's a beast. And he had some moments, but he pretty much got dominated. As a pro so far, Fiore has beaten only low-level fighters, so he still has a lot to prove. He does have a few good wins as an amateur, but this would be his best pro victory here. And both these fighters are not the best strikers, but they have high-level grappling, so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Part of Nick Fiore's last fight, we hadn't really seen much striking from him, but I feel like his striking in his last fight looked better than I expected it to. He had nice feints, fakes. His footwork was better than I thought, and he had a nice check hook, good overhand. He was throwing some solid kicks. He makes some good reads with his counters, and he was mixing in some pretty dangerous elbows, but he's a little bit slow, deliberate. He struggled a lot with the speed of Rebecki, and his defense needs work on the feet. He's a hittable guy, but he's tough, and I feel like offensively his striking is a lot more technical than Chase Hooper's. And Fiore is a high-level grappler. He doesn't have great wrestling, but he can time body locks, and his takedown defense is solid overall. Not great. He did get taken down quite a bit in his last fight, but he's fighting a super explosive wrestler, whereas I don't think Chase Hooper necessarily has that horsepower to take guys down like that. But Fiore, when he can get on top, he has fast back takes, slick chokes. He off of his back, though, I would say, like in his last fight, he didn't really show much. He showed a good ability to mitigate damage with his guard, but he wasn't active. And in this fight, I think Fiore is going to have to show a little bit more if he ends up on his back. But one thing about it is Rebecki was playing a safe game, staying inside the guard and throwing elbows and just kind of using heavy top pressure. Whereas Chase Hooper is more of a grappler that's going to try to transition, get into a dominant position and submit you. So it's going to be a lot easier to move on the ground and find opportunities to be offensive or get back up to your feet than it was in his last matchup. But I do think in this fight, Fiore, if he can get on top, is going to be able to do work, which is something that other opponents of Hooper haven't really been confident to do. I feel like Fiore will be able to not get swept, control the position, and get off some ground and pound, or maybe even get into a dominant position himself and have some ride time. I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to finish Hooper, but I think, or at least on the ground with the submission, but I think he could be able to hold his own and get the better of it if he's on top. And sometimes you will see Hooper pull guard and things like that, so it could be advantageous for Fiore if Hooper does do that in this fight. Fiore's cardio also checked out in his last fight, so he showed us a lot even in a loss. But Chase Hooper, southpaw fighter, he tries to stay long and he works behind his 1-2, but very green striking. Doesn't really throw many punches besides the 1-2. Very kick heavy, and he has no fear of his kicks being caught because he wants to be on the ground. But he'll throw front kicks. He'll throw knees up the middle. He will throw round kicks, but doesn't set him up. You can counter him off his kicks very easy. He has gotten hurt badly in multiple fights. We've seen him in his last fight get knocked out unconscious. And he is smart. I mean, he'll flop to his back and he'll do things to try to negate damage when he's hurt, but definitely extremely hittable, and he's already been put out before in his career and taken a lot of damage overall. And he has 2 knockouts, but they were on the ground. He doesn't have any power. He doesn't really have a big ability, in my opinion, to get people to respect him on the feet. But he is a black belt, and he's a dangerous grappler, Gumby-like with his frame and his flexibility. And he pushes a crazy pace. He'll shoot doubles, body locks, and is always looking to get the takedown. He could shoot 5-6 takedowns in one round. And his wrestling is not good, but he can overwhelm guys and eventually get them down or pull guard. And he has a really, really good scramble type of submission game. And if this fight goes to the ground and Hooper can make it a scramble fest and more super active, then I think he could potentially get the better of it. So I feel like it's an interesting fight, but if I'm Nick Fiore, I'm going to gun for the knockout. I feel like I'm the cleaner striker. I'm more dangerous, and if I can land elbows and clean punches, I have a great chance to possibly get Hooper out of there. So Fiore can obviously grapple with Hooper, and if Hooper pulls guard, I think Fiore would be smart to stay on top if he feels comfortable and bank that round that way. But you don't have to chase offensive takedowns. You don't have to really push the clinch. Be comfortable striking in that range and let Hooper be the one that uses the cardio to try to get it to the ground, because if it becomes a scramble fest, it could become closer than it needs to be, or maybe Hooper could kind of just catch Fiore slipping and submit him. But I feel like if Fiore fights with good fight IQ, he's the cleaner striker, probably superior grappler when he's in top position, and he could get the victory here. So I'm actually going to pick Fiore to win, and I'm going to pick him to win by second round knockout in this fight. And this next one, we got an interesting fight here. Ilir Latifi is taking on Rodrigo Nosmento. And Ilir Latifi, he retired in the cage in October of last year, so he's making a real short-lived return from retirement. He did get the win in his last fight over Alexio Linik, and he's on a 2-fight winning streak, so I don't know how far he wants to take it. Maybe he feels he has a few more paydays left in him. Maybe he changed course and thinks he can get to the title, but he's 40 years old, so I feel like a loss, it may be the end for him. But his opponent, Rodrigo Nosmento, he is 30 years old, so he's much younger. He's shown some flashes. He's won 3 of his last 4 fights, and he recently had a pretty decent victory over a common opponent of Ilir Latifi in Tanner Boser, and he's training an American top team, so he's slowly progressing. I believe it's been 7 months since his last fight, so could potentially see even more improvements when he comes in here. But to me, this is a tough fight to predict. It may feel straightforward because of Latifi just retiring, being older, having a lot of mileage, but I don't trust Nosmento either. Ilir Latifi is still dangerous, even on the feet. He stays defensively sound. He has good movement. He's never going to open up, and he just throws minimal strikes, looks for the counter left hook or the counter overhand. And when he throws, he's still pretty explosive. And Nosmento, he is the much bigger, longer guy. He comes downhill. He brings the pressure, throwing jabs, straight punches. He'll throw some decent punch combinations, and he keeps the volume higher than Latifi, but he's not as fast. He's not that powerful, and I don't believe that he takes punches the best. I've seen him get clipped, get shook up, and when Nosmento gets touched, I feel like he gets hurt. Latifi could easily slip a check hook in there that puts Nosmento on Queer Street potentially, and I think the striking could be competitive, honestly, because Latifi could keep Nosmento honest, and neither guy is that proficient standing up, so it's going to be a battle of speed and power against length, output, and conditioning. And the wrestling grappling is also interesting because Nosmento, for heavyweight, has high-level jiu-jitsu from the top position, but he isn't necessarily a great wrestler, and I doubt that he can take Latifi down. Latifi has 100% takedown defense in the UFC, and Latifi has the capability to take down most heavyweights. His single is nice, and that's where it could get interesting because I haven't seen anybody shoot in on Nosmento and attempt to take him down. I don't know how good Nosmento is off of his back. Latifi could come in here and expose Nosmento, potentially blanket him and get a decision victory that way. Nosmento has not had to defend a takedown yet in the UFC, so it's just a fight that's unpredictable. Cardio-wise, I think Nosmento has the better gas tank and he pushes the higher pace. I really don't know how anyone could be confident in either guy here, but I think if Latifi was coming in his prime, it'd be an easy decision. But with 1 foot in, 1 foot out, just having retired, it's difficult to know what you're going to get out of Latifi. At least you know with Nosmento, he's young, hungry, probably going to be getting better after every fight with every training camp. This is the best opponent or the biggest name opponent he's ever faced, so he has a lot of motivation, whereas Latifi's just fighting a random guy. So if Nosmento gets stopped a couple takedowns, doesn't get clipped early, I think he'll probably take over. But Latifi could easily just take him down for 3 rounds and hold him down. So I'm not confident, but I'm going to pick Nosmento to win via second or third round KO TKO in this fight. And this next fight, we got kind of a prospect versus prospect fight with Ori and Cody taking on Gilbert Urbina. And the Cody brother experiment has not gone as planned in the UFC, but Ori and Cody did win his last fight. He's looking to get 2 wins in a row and maybe try to turn it around for the Cody family, or at least for himself. But Ori and Cody, he was undefeated before joining the UFC, but he lost to Fialho in his debut. His second fight, he went in there with Blood Diamond, who I don't think is UFC level, has no grappling, and he was able to just use his wrestling to take him down and hold him down. But he didn't even really wrestle him effectively. He just kind of held him against the cage. And Cody still has a lot to prove and should be hungry to earn another victory here. Gilbert Urbina, he's making his comeback after 2 years on the sidelines. He hasn't fought since his last appearance on the Ultimate Fighter finale, August 28th, 2021. He started really fast in that fight. He dropped Bryan Battle early, but ended up faltering and getting finished in the second round. And he's only 27 years old, so there's potential during this time off. He could come in here new and improved. And Urbina is making the drop down to 170 for this fight, and it's an important one for him. He's currently lost 2 fights in a row, so his back is against the wall here, and he probably won't get another opportunity to stay in the UFC if he doesn't get the win here. His striking, from what we saw, is not that good, but he has potential because he's smooth, he's fast, he's lengthy. He has good offense. His lead hook is good, and he has a decent kicking game. He'll come forward with big right hooks, overhands, uppercuts. He has some elbows on the inside, but his defense on the feet is not good. He runs into punches with his hands down. He'll eat clean shots. We've seen in his fight with Tresean Gore, he got knocked out and he got dropped multiple times before that. But he's a grappler. He likes to come out hot, use his aggression, and get it to the mat. He has a nice double, good back takes. His arms are long, his legs are long. He has good ability to control the back due to that. And he's good at flowing from the back mount to full mount. He has good chokes, and overall his grappling is dangerous. His last fight with Bryan Battle, he got a few takedowns and was winning most of the grappling exchanges, but he tired himself out, ended up getting taken down himself, gave his back, and got choked out. His cardio is a little good in other fights, but I don't know how the drop down to 170 will affect his cardio. I don't know if Cody being able to wrestle him a little bit will slow him down like we saw it did in the battle fight, but we have seen Urbina beat a similar opponent. He beat another Team Alpha Male product who is a grinding type of guy, and he used a lot of switches, and he was able to create scrambles and show good cardio and beat him over 3 rounds, and that was Angelo Trevino. I think Ori and Cody is a little better than Trevino, but it's a good, common, stylistic matchup with 2 guys that are training at the same gym, too. And Ori and Cody, boxer, wrestler, he's tough, athletic, well-conditioned. He hasn't had many fights, so he's still developing. Short, compact, he's quick, and he'll throw some big hooks, overhands. He has okay hand speed, but he stands square, he's hittable. His cardio isn't great, and sometimes he can really get tired when he can't hit takedowns. He gassed out against Phil Rowe and got TKO'd. He showed a really good chin and toughness in that fight. He took a lot of damage before the fight eventually got stopped, but his striking needs a lot of work, and he is strong early. He likes to push guys against the cage. His wrestling is okay. I feel like Urbina is the superior grappler, and I think that Cody is going to find it more advantageous to just press him against the fence and actually try to take him down and exchange in the jiu-jitsu. But Cozy maybe could just grind him against the cage for all 3 rounds. But I'm going to pick Urbina here because I like his upside more. I feel he's a better striker, grappler. He's the better cardio. His defense and chin worry me, and Cozy maybe could clip him or just hold him against the fence for 3 rounds, especially if he struggles with the weight cut. I think maybe then Cozy can get an easier win, but Urbina has the potential to be a good fighter, and during the time off, hopefully he's gotten better. I'm going to say Urbina takes a decision in a fight where he wins scrambles, keeps the top position better, and is just the superior striker at range. And in this next matchup, we got Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Vanessa Demopolis. And Vanessa Demopolis, she's been overachieving in the UFC. She's on a 3-fight winning streak. A lot of people didn't even think she deserved the opportunity to join the UFC when she did. So you have to commend her for her improvements and her ability to step up when the moment was the biggest. And she's improved her striking. She likes to move around, use footwork, and then throw overhands or time double legs. She has a powerful left hook, and she'll throw kicks occasionally. She has good dexterity with her kicks, but she doesn't really set them up well. She has high-level grappling. She has some heavy ground and pound, dangerous submissions. She's mean. She throws heat. Her toughness and her will to win, along with her conditioning, can never be questioned. We have seen her clipped on the chin and hurt badly in some fights, but she's very hard to get out of there. And Karolina Kowalkiewicz, she has looked better since moving to ATT. She's on a 2-fight win streak. She has gotten in better shape, and her athleticism is somewhat back again. On the feet, she is very much the same. She likes to pressure heavily, work the jab, and then try to flurry her way into the clinch where she does damage. In the clinch, she's strong. She has good knees, elbows, but she's slow and she's flat-footed. She does have the cardio to keep the pressure, and she wears girls down and then gets inside and can beat them up, but she's forced to take a lot of damage to get inside sometimes. Her chin isn't what it used to be, and I think a sneaky bet could be Vanessa Demopolis by knockout because she throws heavy, and she could drop or hurt Karolina on the feet and then finish with ground and pound. Karolina is going to have to cut the cage off, get inside, force exchanges. She needs to take risks and try to take some shots to give shots and try to up her volume. And I think her array of attacks and volume is superior to Demopolis's. But I feel like it should be like a even money fight, and the line is coming down a little bit. Demopolis was the underdog, and now it's coming closer to even money. And I'm going to go with Demopolis here. I feel like she is, even though they're similar ages, she's still 3 years younger, which is pretty significant. And she has a lot less wear and tear on the body in terms of MMA. And I feel like she's on a better run right now. I think her ability to move and then time counters and maybe even get a takedown or two could lead to a finish. And I just feel like she is going to be a little bit more impressive than Karolina if it goes to decision. So I'm going to go with the underdog here, slight underdog in Vanessa Demopolis. And closing out the prelims, we got a fight that should be super fun to watch between 2 strikers, mahishata and Vyacheslav Borshev. And great matchmaking. Both these guys are aggressive knockout artists, and lately they've been in there against grinders, and they've just lost their fights in boring contests. Even though I guess the fight with mahishata against Garcia wasn't boring, even though there was a lot of wrestling in there. But Slava, he's just been absolutely dominated in the grappling. He got exposed majorly, taken out 20 times in his last 2 fights. He got controlled for 12 minutes and 24 seconds out of 15 against Mark Jacasey. He controlled for 8 minutes and 2 seconds out of 15 against Mike Davis. Even against Dakota Bush, Borshev was taken on twice in the first round. So that's definitely a huge issue for him. But mahishata shot 0 takedowns in his 2 UFC appearances. He shot 0 takedowns in his Contender Series fight. And he's not going to be looking to wrestle. So this is the best matchup possible for Borshev. He himself, mahishata, has been taken on 6 times in his last fight when he fought Garcia. So he is someone that's going to be really happy that his opponent isn't trying to take him down either. And these guys are going to stand and bang until someone goes down. And Borshev, he's a badass striker. He likes to do his work in the pocket. He really doesn't throw a ton at distance. And the game plan against Borshev has always been to be all the way in or all the way out. But Borshev, when he gets into the pocket, he makes good reads. He loves to rip the body. He'll slip his opponent's shots, then rip that left hook. And Borshev's left hook to the body and to the head are very fast, accurate, and powerful. He is super good in exchanges. He can land on the back foot and just touch guys right on the chin. And you'll work in that right hook to the body and to the head. He uses his right uppercut and right body shots to open up both those shots. Like, he is good at disguising when he's going to throw the body shot and throw the uppercut, and he's good at disguising when he's going to throw the body shot and come with the uppercut. And he has good right overhand as well. He isn't a big combination puncher, and he likes to load up and throw with heat. And in the last fight, he was throwing more calf kicks and more jabs, which I think that would be smart and add to his game. He can't be all hooks and kill shot oriented. He should try to work in more jabs, kicks, and more fights, and try to make it harder for fighters to close the gap and take him down. And Borshev has the ability to change the fight with one punch, though. And when he gets on the inside in flurries, he is very high level. He can find his punches and is super clean and accurate. So he's just a very fun striker to watch. Being in the pocket is dangerous, though. We did see him get dropped by Kenley St. Louis, and exchanging is always a tough game to play. So mahishata is going to have a chance to land something clean, but obviously if they're in the pocket, I think Borshev, with his experience, is probably going to be able to get the better of it, in my opinion. But mahishata, he's a young kid. He's a skilled striker, tall, long for the weight. He's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. On the feet, he likes to play off the back foot, and he allows her to control the center early. He uses his foot to pull them into punches, and then once he sees guys start to gas, he'll put the pressure on them and start to get wild, invite exchanges, throw flying knees, throw spins, and get very aggressive. And at range, mahishata has a nice jab. He'll shoot crosses, body head. His 1-2s and 1-1-2s are slick, and he can mix in some tricky hook kicks and head kicks, and he loves the left hook as well. He is primarily only throwing that off the back foot and to the head, so he's not as diverse with it or as dangerous with the Slava, I don't think, but his left hook is nice. And he is good at landing shots off the back foot, mahishata. He will throw elbows off the back foot, which are dangerous. And he does have tall man defense, though, and he got rocked a few times in his fight with Achilles Esther Murata. He has great cardio, and he tends to get better as fights go on, as he gets his reads, gets his composure, gets his confidence. Then he could stay in that pocket and use his length and his ability to pull counter to his benefit. But both these fighters, I think, have the chance to catch one another and knock each other out. I think Slava is going to be the fighter who controlled the center better, and I feel his leg kicks and body punching could open up some big shots. If Borshev can get mahishata against the cage, I think he can land the cleaner punches too. And mahishata is going to have to try to catch Borshev out of position, clip him with a shot, and knock him out. And I don't see him winning a decision or long-term striking battle against Borshev. Borshev, to me, is just more experienced striking against superior strikers and a little more polished. mahishata has really not fought a great striker in his career yet. So I think Borshev's going to show him something, and I'm going to go with Borshev via first-round knockout in this one. So I think Borshev is just a little bit too experienced for this guy in the striking room. Kicking off the main card, we got a battle of two OGs in the fight game here with Michael Johnson and Carlos Diego Ferreira. Michael Johnson, he had a career resurgence of sorts recently since his loss to Clay Guida in 2021. After that fight, he took a year off from fighting, and he's come back rejuvenated. He knocked out Alan Patrick. He then fought Jamie Malarkey, and I thought he won. It was a very controversial split decision loss. And then he got an upset win over Mark Jacasey in his last fight. So now he's looking to make it 2 wins in a row for the first time since 2018. In some people's eyes, it would be 4 consecutive wins in a row. And if he could do that, he may be able to get a shot against a top 15 fighter again. Carlos Diego Ferreira, he is a fighter who's a little bit hard to trust right now. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, hasn't won a fight in over 3 years, and he's had issues making weight. He missed weight for his last 2 fights. His last fight, he suffered an injury that ended the fight, and since then he had a fight scheduled with Jakar Close that canceled due to Ferreira suffering an injury. He hasn't been in the cage in over a year. He's 38 years old, so it seems like his body may be failing him a little bit, and hopefully he can come back off the layoff and look refreshed just like Michael Johnson did. And before that 3-fight losing streak, Ferreira was on a 6-fight winning streak, and he was looking incredible. And his losses have came against all top 10 opponents. He has, even in the UFC in general, but in his recent streak, he lost to Gregor Gillespie, Mateusz Gamrot, and Beneil Dariush. But besides those guys, he has one other loss to Beneil Dariush. He's lost him twice, and then a loss to Dustin Poirier. So, I mean, all those guys are absolute hammers. And Ferreira's been competitive against almost all of them also. So, it just comes down to how much he has left and where he's at in his career. But Diego Ferreira's always been an underrated fighter. And when he comes in on point, Carlos Diego Ferreira is a tough fighter to deal with. He brings excellent pressure. He cuts the cage off well. He could switch stances. Ferreira's hands are underrated. He has a really nice jab. He'll double, triple up on it to close the distance. He has a good rear cross, good hook, good overhands, and good head movement as well. He evades a lot of punches, slips and returns with combinations. He attacks the body with front kicks, round kicks, and he has the cardio to walk down fighters and throw 400 strikes in one fight. We've seen it in his fights with Rustam Khabilov, in his fight with Marbek Taisimov, and he's also very durable. He could take heavy shots to the head and continue to come forward. We have seen his body is a little less durable. He's been hurt to the body in certain fights and finished, and I think some of that is probably due to tough weight cuts. But if I were an opponent and I've already seen Carlos Diego Ferreira beat speedy strikers with good 1-2s like Anthony Pettis and Taisimov, and I'm Michael Johnson, I would be a little concerned because he definitely can evade with his head movement, keep the pressure, eventually get the takedown, or just wear guys down and beat them up. And that's what he's going to be looking to do against Michael Johnson. And I feel like his record against Southpaws in the UFC, I've seen some people bring that up because he is 1-5. But it's a little bit deceiving because, I mean, he lost to Dustin Poirier. He lost to Beneil Dariush twice. And he also lost to Gamrot. But all those guys or a majority of them took him down. The only guy that really struck with him and beat him that was a southpaw was Poirier, to be fair. And Diego's a high-level grappler. His wrestling is decent when he can get fighters against the cage. He could take him down, and he has good back takes from standing. He is excellent in top position. Control is top-notch. If fighters make big actions to get up, they'll get finished. When he gets to the back, he has excellent ground and pound, good rear naked chokes and arm bars. And he's really good at when you take him down, you'll attack the legs, create a scramble immediately. He's super hard to take down. And in his last couple of fights, we've seen some really fun grappling exchanges because he's been fighting the cream of the crop when it comes to wrestlers in the UFC. And his last fight with Mateusz Gamrot, I thought he was winning the fight before he got TKO due to an injury. And he said he came into the fight injured, so hopefully this one he doesn't have anything like that. But you just saw like his ability to scramble and stand up off bottom is incredible. And his cardio is really good when he's at his optimum. I feel like he is the superior fighter at full go. So hopefully he could show out one more time and be, 100% against MJ here. But Michael Johnson's a guy whose style has not changed much throughout the years. He's southpaw, extremely fast hands. Even nowadays at 38, his hands are still fast. I mean, they call this guy Manny Blackheel for a reason. I mean, his hand speed is crazy. And he's high volume, fast, nice 1-2s. He'll go to the body effectively, big hooks and overhands, and his right hook is nasty. He's willing to stick in the fire. If you want to exchange with him in the pocket, he will. Nice uppercut. In his fight with Clay Guida, we did see he struggle with the pressure head movement and slip and rip boxing with the takedown attempts mixed in. And Ferreira brings that same style. MJ really couldn't keep Clay off him that night, so he's going to need to have a better answer for the pressure from CDF. You do have a chance to get KO'd by being aggressive versus MJ, but that's the way you have to give him trouble is through pressure. If you stay at range with him, you're probably going to get pieced up. And Michael Johnson's Achilles heel has always been good grapplers. He has a good sprawl and good initial takedown defense, but fighters can wear him down with chain wrestling. And once you get Johnson on his back, he can struggle. He gives his back to stand up. Sometimes he can make big actions. And with someone as technical as CDF, if he gives his back, he's going to get submitted, I feel like. He's been submitted 9 times. And his cardio is questionable when you fight at a high pace. He's looked good recently, but I feel like this is his toughest matchup in a while. And personally, if CDF comes in shape, I think he has the style to finish Michael Johnson and submit him. the pressure, the jab specifically, will help him back Michael Johnson to the fence. And if he could take Michael Johnson down, get the back, I think the fight will be over. CDF needs to bring the same game plan he did against Pettis, he did against Marbek Taisimov. And if he looks good at weigh-ins, I think a bet on him is probably not a bad play. And I'm going to go with CDF in the third round via submission here. And this next fight, this should be a banger right here between Andre Fialho and Joaquin Buckley. And Andre Fialho, he's cooled off. He had a really fast start when he joined the UFC. He signed to the company in January of 22, took on Michel Pereira, who was, and he still is, a top 15 fighter on short notice. He was able to drop Pereira, made a great account of himself in that fight. And after that, he got 2 one-punch knockouts in the span of 1 month. And his last 2 fights, though, he's been on the wrong end of the KO equation. And he's 2-3 in the UFC now. So this is a pivotal fight for him to prove that he belongs. And for Buckley, he's finally making the return to his, in my opinion, optimal weight class of 170 pounds. He's been undersized in all his UFC fights at 185, and he's still the shorter fighter, but this time it's by only 2 inches. It's not the usual crazy disparity he's used to. And at 185, Buckley was a fun fighter, but he was up and down at 5-4. Hopefully at 170, he can have a more fruitful run. But right now he's on a 2-fight losing streak and has to turn that around. One thing that does worry me as well is this is going to be the first time he's made this cut since 2018. He just got knocked out 5 months ago, so he's coming back really quickly. His chin is a red flag. You combine that with dropping even more weight, and the UFC giving him no favors and a knockout artist as an opponent. This is a very dangerous fight to take on if you're Joaquin Buckley, in my opinion. And Fialo, he's a very dangerous striker. Likes to keep heavy pressure on his opponents. He looks to counterpunch. He has a good jab, nasty left hook, dangerous right hook. In exchanges, he's willing to throw down. He's super dangerous. On the inside, he has nasty uppercuts in that clinch too. And you'll mix in some leg kicks. He's low volume, which is a problem because if he doesn't find the knockout, he could struggle to win decisions. Out of his 16 wins, he has 13 knockouts. And he has a good chin. He could take it. His last couple fights, he has gotten finished. But against Salikov, it was a standing TKO, mercy stoppage type of thing. And he got very tired from the body kicks and just got flat-footed and became a punching bag. And that is an issue with Fialo. It seems like he tends to get tired and become very flat-footed and hittable as fights go on if he can't find that finish. So he needs to improve his gas tank or just come in with a little bit more disciplined game plan to maintain it. And he becomes much less dangerous though as fights go on, like I said. But his wrestling and grappling, I've seen him hit singles and get to the back, but I don't think he's going to try to take down Buckley. And his takedown defense, I would say, is average. If someone makes him wrestle hard, I've seen him get tired. But I do expect this fight to mostly be a stand-up fight. Buckley, he's short, compact boxer, decent kicks, super explosive, and he has good in-and-out movement, good head movement to get inside, and then he'll let go with the powerful hooks. He'll go body to open up the head, and he has decent karate-style kicks on the outside, and so he can stay active with that. And in this fight, he needs to stay on his movement game for 3 rounds. He can't exchange with Fialo, can't be in close quarters because Fialo is a lot sharper. I think he'll probably likely find Buckley's chin. This fight to me is very similar to the Chris Curtis fight for Buckley because besides the stance, because Fialo isn't a southpaw, but Buckley was winning handily before he got caught and finished, and you could see that happen once again in this fight. Buckley also has 11 knockouts, so obviously if he lands clean or he lands a crazy kick, he could be going home with the knockout victory. But as far as the grappling goes for Buckley, I would say he has a decent double leg. When he gets on top, he has heavy ground and pound, but he doesn't have best top control. And his defensive wrestling has gotten a lot better. We've seen that in certain fights, so I don't think we're going to see him getting taken down here. His cardio is usually never an issue, and he always is high volume. But with this fight, I think either Fialo is going to catch Buckley at some point and knock him out, or Buckley is going to win on points. Buckley should target the body and try to stay all the way in or all the way out. And if he can use his foot speed to not let Fialo get inside and then get him tired, he could minimize the risk factor and just up the volume and beat him easily, cleanly by decision. For Fialo, he needs to start fast, look to establish the pressure early. If he can get Buckley to exchange with him or get his reads and his timing, he has the power to put Buckley to sleep. The issue with Fialo is the output, but I'm going to pick Fialo via second round knockout here. I think he'll find the shot and take Buckley out. Buckley is coming back fast after that Curtis KO, dropping weight, and I just don't trust his chin. He's getting a fighter who takes advantage of defensive mistakes and can end the fight with one punch. I feel that spells disaster for Buckley, so Fialo, he is coming off a TKO loss, but I don't think he was as hurt as bad, in my opinion, as Buckley was, and he's taking a little bit more time off, so I feel like this should be a lot closer to a pick'em than where the line is now, and I'm gonna bet on Fialo. I did have a bet on him, so I'll let you guys know that, and I'm going to pick him to win via second round knockout here. And up next here, we got Lupita Godinez taking on Emily to Cody. And this is a short notice fight. Lupita Godinez is coming in here replacing Poliana Viana. And if I was Emily to Cody, I wouldn't have acquiesced to that catchweight, man. I think that helps Godinez quite a bit. I mean, to fight at 120, Godinez, I feel like is going to want to try to take her down and hold her down. So I would have said, screw that, come down to 115. But obviously this is her first fight of 2023, and maybe beggars can't be choosers. Maybe they couldn't find anyone else, and they said the only way we can make this happen is if you allow the 120 catch weight, which isn't crazy difference. At least it's not 125, but I do think it would have been better for Cody if it was at 115. But Cody had her 4-fight win streak snapped in her last fight. She lost to Angela Hill. She's 1-1 in the UFC now, and this fight could potentially dictate if Cody is kind of a middling fighter or a top 15 fighter. And she had a lot of high hopes before entering the UFC. She had won the Invicta title. She defended it. So obviously she wants to be in that category of a top 15 girl, and she's going to have to show that she's not going to have another performance of the Angela Hill fight, because that fight, man, I mean, I feel like she just froze in that fight. She didn't do much of anything in that fight after the first round, and just very bad performance from her there. But she's getting Lupi Godinez, who I feel like is a little more respected than Poliana Viana, who she was originally supposed to face. So if she can beat Godinez, she could get right back in the mix and get another top 15 opponent like Angela Hill in her next fight. And Lupi Godinez, she's back to her usually scheduled programming. She's taken another short notice fight. She's been one of the most active fighters in the UFC since she joined the company. She set the record for the shortest time in between UFC fights in modern UFC history. She, since becoming a UFC fighter 13 months ago, has fought 8 times. And she just fought April 8th against Cynthia Calvillo. That was a tough fight too. I mean, she won by split decision. She had her nose busted. So coming back just 6 weeks later, she's not going to be 100% here, especially on short notice. But if Godinez can win, she's going to have won 4 out of her last 5 UFC fights, and potentially, be in line to get another big opportunity like she did when she lost to Angela Hill as well. And Lupi Godinez, we know her style. She's a boxer wrestler, pretty basic on their feet. She comes forward and backwards in straight lines, doesn't have great defense or movement. Early in round 1, she's at her best, and she's fast. She hits hard. She has a good jab. She'll throw the big right hand, 2 3s, 3 2s. And she is very heavy on her lead leg, and she pulls back to evade punches. Emily Cody's a big leg kicker, and I feel like that could be a factor in the fight. Her last 2 fights, for whatever reason, Godinez took the second round off too. So I don't know if that was a strategy, but she took the second round off and then came back hard in the third in both of those fights. And I feel like in this one, she needs to be inside to land and be trying to stay attached to Cody and more not in space, because Cody's really good at range as a striker. She has good timing and lands clean shots. And if Lupita wants to win this fight, she has to wrestle to Cody. I feel like her last 2 fights, she hasn't used her wrestling, but this one, she has to mix it up. Cody is very sharp with her boxing, and she actually is decent off her back too, but if she gets taken down, I could see her kind of going into a same type of defensive shell she did against Hill and being real defensive, waiting for the takedown, and that could really help Godinez open up on the feet and be more competitive there. And for Cody, She likes to control the center, stand in front of opponents. She is fairly flat-footed, but she stands tall so she can move in and out when fighters come at her, and she can kind of pull counter. She has heavy leg kicks, nice check hook, good rear to career cross. She is low volume though, and it's usually just pot shots. She is fast, clean, accurate, and in this fight she's going to be looking for the leg kicks and pull counters. Having that style with the pull counter standing right in front of girls, she is a little bit hittable sometimes, and sometimes she can kind of misgauge when she's pulling back and get touched. And against Godinez early on, Godinez maybe could clip her and land some big shots, but I feel like over time, Cody is going to get the distance and be able to be the better striker and land clean shots. And if Lupita gets really overzealous, we could even see a KO, which is unlikely, but we've seen Cody get some highlight reel knockouts in the past. And Emily Cody is a solid defensive grappler. She isn't an offensive wrestler, but she will time double legs sometimes. And on top, she's decent. I don't really see her trying to get on top here, but if she does and gets to the back, she has good rear naked chokes. And she can't be taken down and lose decisions, but she'll throw up arm bars, and she has fast setups and hips. She can catch you sleeping. She arguably won a fight where she spent most of it off her back against Kanako Murata. It was a split decision. And she doesn't have great get-ups, though. If you pass her guard, too, she doesn't have much to offer. She has to avoid getting put on her back here. And she's okay cardio, but I feel like if you push the pace, she could struggle to keep that pace that girls push if it's high. And I think this is a 50-50 fight, honestly. Cody has the advantage of the full camp, and Godinez just took some significant damage in her fight with Calvillo. If Cody can keep this standing and avoid being taken down, I think she'll win with her accuracy, her speed, and a lot of leg kicks. I don't even think, like I said, a flash KO is out of the realm of possibility. Godinez is going to be able to land too, though, and I think she'll land the heavier shots early and could be competitive in the first round striking. And because Cody is hittable, I'm worried that Godinez could be competitive on the feet and then just win with minimal control or a takedown or two. And I don't know. I feel like this fight could go either way, but I'm going to go with Godinez. I just think she's going to be pressuring forward, so the optics of that could look better. And she could use a takedown or two to steal a decision. I think that it being at 120 favors her a little bit too. So I'm not confident in this fight either, but I'm going to go with Lupita Godinez by decision. And in the co-main event here, we got a really fun fight, a fight that I'm looking forward to with Edmund Shabazian taking on Anthony Hernandez. This is an excellent matchup. Edmund Shabazian is a fighter who is seen by many as a failure and busted prospect, but he's still only 25 years old, and I think he's the victim of expectations. Shabazian came to the UFC young, confident, undefeated like many other fighters. He won his first 4 fights in a row in the UFC with 3 first-round finishes. That led to him getting his first main event against Derek Brunson, and that's where the shine started to come off. He lost via third-round knockout. He was a huge favorite, and then he lost 2 fights in a row after that. He was fighting top 15 opponents. He lost to Nadine Amavov, and he lost to Jack Hermanson. So obviously those guys are high level, but in his last one he came back. He got kind of a tune-up fight. He fought Daucha Lungiambula, got the knockout, and hopefully that grew his confidence up again. And he should be getting better now. He left his home gym, which wasn't really a great gym for him to be at, and he went to Extreme Couture, and that should start to pay dividends. You know, he is the underdog in this fight, and he's taking on a surging fighter, but I think that stylistically, people are maybe counting him out too quickly. And Anthony Hernandez, he's the complete opposite story to Edmund Shabazian. He came to the UFC, lost 2 of his first 3 fights. He lost his debut to Marcus Perez, which was a bad loss. And then he had an even worse loss where he got TKO'd in 39 seconds against Kevin Holland. And since the Holland fight, though, Hernandez has won 3 fights in a row. The only thing that's really held him back has been inactivity. He's had great performances. He had an upset of the year candidate against Rodolfo Vieira, but he's only fought 3 times in 3 years. And this is going to be Hernandez's first fight of 2023. If he wins and is healthy, hopefully he could try to be more active, get 1-2 more fights in before the end of the year. And this is a step up, both on the card in terms of being the co-main event and an opponent for Hernandez. Hernandez's winning streak, he's fought some solid fighters, but fighters who aren't at the level of opponents who Shabazian has fought. And Anthony Hernandez, he is a grinder, man. I mean, this guy pushes an insane pace. He is wild on the feet. He has power, but he's in danger in this fight in the stand-up because he's all over the place. He is almost over-aggressive. And Shabazian cracks. I mean, Hernandez mainly just throws wild overhands. He'll try to close the distance with straight punch flurries, and he gets fighters backed up towards the cage and then can take them down. And he's always looking to mix level changes in between his strikes, so it's hard to commit to throwing back at him because you know a takedown is coming. And on the inside, he's good. He has elbows, knees, and I would say the dirty boxing is where he's probably the most proficient on the feet. In this fight, I think he's going to struggle standing up. If he can't get the takedown, I see him getting put to sleep most likely. He's too open to be hit. Edmon's slick and accurate. Hernandez in his losses to Marcus Perez and Kevin Holland, he got hurt to the body. And Edmond is really good at attacking that midsection, so that could potentially be a factor. And Hernandez is a relentless wrestler. Like I said, he pushes the wrestling from start to finish. He can chain wrestle. Most guys can't keep that pace. And on top, he's super aggressive with his transitions, with his ground and pound. Always active. He likes to get his wrestling, or get to the wrestling right position and throw short shots, zap opponents from there, get mat returns. He has a good front choke game, and he has no issues going for submissions that put him on his back because he knows he can work back up to his feet eventually. And if he can get his grappling going, from what we've seen from Edmond, who gets tired, it could be a nightmare matchup for Edmond. But Edmond Shabazian, he's a seasoned striker. He's a lot better on the feet. He's athletic. He moves well. He's accurate. He has a good jab, good check hook. His 1-2s are fast. He has decent uppercuts. He has good body punches. He has good combination punching on the inside. He's also a solid kicker. He throws hard body kicks, which to me makes him a live underdog. Snappy front kicks, round kicks to the body. He also throws that tricky Robert Whittaker-esque high kick off the feint jab. And Shabazian gets clipped sometimes because he likes to play in the pocket, but he's shown a good chin, and his power is there. He has a lot of knockouts and a lot of early knockouts. And Shabazian's main issue in his career has came against wrestlers and grapplers. In his 3 losses, he's been taken out multiple times. 2 of them, he got finished on the ground, but he's teamed up with Extreme Couture, and to me, he's a guy that's a great athlete. He has the coaching and wrestling bodies now to work with at that gym, and he could come in and really improve his takedown defense quickly. His takedown defense at clinch looked really strong in his last fight with Daucha Lungiambula, and eventually he timed a flying knee when Daucha level changed and knocked him out. And in his losses, he's been back to the cage or overextended and taken down, and when he ends up on his back, he is a fish out of water. He tires quickly, so he can't afford to allow Hernandez to get him to the mat because he'll probably be finished. But I still have hope for Shabazian, though. I feel like he, with the better team, can now maybe make do on his potential. And to me, this line is off. I don't think Hernandez should be this big of a favorite with his reckless style. And Shabazian could easily knock him out. Edmond is significantly more athletic. He's more dangerous than the recent opponents whom Hernandez has beaten in his 3-fight winning streak. Shabazian's body attack could be the story of the fight. And he has the capability, especially with the power, Hernandez's style, to KO him at any point over the 3 rounds. If Shabazian is going to be a future contender, this is a fight he has to win, in my opinion. Hernandez, though, he has a clear path to victory, and that's through wrestling. If Hernandez can get his grappling going, he could finish Edmond and tire him out, but this could end up being a foolish prediction, but I'm going to take his final chance with Edmond here. I think that being with Extreme Couture is a big deal, and Hernandez to me is kind of a poor man's version of Marab, but he's less durable and a worse wrestler. He puts himself in danger, and Shabazian is the most dangerous striker that Hernandez has ever fought, maybe outside of Kevin Holland, and Shabazian definitely has a chance to knock him out, so I'm going to go with Edmond via first-round KO here. And finally, we got the main event here. We got Mackenzie Dern. She's going to be taking on Angela Hill, and obviously this is a short notice fight in sorts where it was supposed to be a 3-round fight last week. Now it's a 5-round main event, and both these girls, they've had impressive runs in the UFC, but they've shown their limitations, and it's a clash of styles, so it's going to be interesting to see who can kind of implement what they want to do. When you look at Angela Hill, she's 38 years old, but you could argue that she's been she's better than ever at this point. And she's the most tenured female fighter in UFC history. She's had ups and downs. She's only 10-12 in her 22 UFC fights, but clearly made big improvements over the years. And she's lost. She's picked herself up plenty of times and now turned into a very solid gatekeeper to that top 10. And she had some decisions that didn't go her way during her title run, which I think that's her chances of ever getting into the UFC title picture again. But she's won 2 fights in a row. She's found herself in a main event, and crazier things have happened, I guess. So she's getting a chance to slay those demons of facing jiu-jitsu girls here if she gets the victory. And Mackenzie Dern, she's still young in terms of her MMA career, and she's having to develop in front of her eyes against top flight competition. She has that elite jiu-jitsu background and marketability, and she was able to get in the UFC and create a profile quickly. If you ask me, she overachieved and how fast she made it to top-level competition and even got some big wins over girls like Tisha Torres and Virna Jandiroba. And Dern has all shown her limitations, though, and we've seen her lose fights to higher-level strikers with good distance control. Furthermore, which is probably even more infuriating for Dern, is we've seen her get these girls in her world on the ground in dominant positions, and she couldn't finish the fight. Dern was extremely close to finishing Marina Rodriguez and Yan Xiaonan, and she just couldn't get it done. And if Shachi had beat Marina, I think we could have potentially seen Mackenzie Dern in a UFC title fight. So maybe it was good for Dern that she didn't get that finish, so she can get more cage time. And if she does ever get that opportunity, she'll be more ready for it. But this Saturday is another chance to go 5 rounds against a high-level experienced striker and see how she fares. And this fight is pretty easy to break down. I mean, you got Mackenzie Dern, who, in terms of technicality, her striking isn't on the level of Angela Hill, but she has improved her striking. She has a lot more power. She throws those big overhands, and she has great cardio and pressure, and her chin is on point. So she's always going to be coming forward. She's never going to let her opponent breathe, and she's going to be throwing big punches. We saw that against Tisha Torres generate into a victory in the eyes of the judges. So pressure and landing some big shots, even if she's getting outstruck in most people's eyes, could get her the win on some nights. And then obviously when she can get it to the ground, which she really struggles to get it to the ground in a lot of fights. She's got it to the ground off of dropping opponents or pulling guard, and her takedown accuracy is like 11%. But if she can get it to the ground in this fight, she's going to have the opportunity to submit Angela Hill like she does anyone else in the division. And Angela Hill, we've seen her submitted 2 times in her career. So the threat is there. And we've seen Angela really work a lot on her grappling, her wrestling defense, and her jiu-jitsu defense. And you'd think that at this point, this is like her Super Bowl, man. She has to come out here and beat this girl, Mackenzie Dern, when she's been putting in work for years on being able to beat this exact style. So that's going to be kind of the blueprint for Hill. I mean, Hill's going to have to do what she usually does. She's going to have to stay on the outside. She's going to have to work the jab. She's going to probably mix in leg kicks, elbows. I think elbows could be a big factor in the fight. And just use her cardio, and her fitness has to be extremely high to be able to move for 5 rounds and avoid getting backed up, avoid getting clipped with the heavier shots, and avoid getting, in any type of clinch exchange or jiu-jitsu scramble. And I think if this was 3 rounds, I would have favored Hill a little bit more if this fight was last week, because is she really going to be ready for 5 rounds that quickly? I feel like Mackenzie Dern will be. I'm not worried about Mackenzie Dern's cardio. I'm worried about Angela Hill's cardio because I've seen her get tired in 5-round fights. She's older at 38, and this is kind of an impromptu main event where she was not aware that she had to go 5 rounds here. So I feel like this fight could go either way. I think if it goes to points, Hill will win. I feel like Dern could win early by submission, like in the first round, or in the 4th or 5th. So I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern here. I'm going to go with Dern. I think that it being a 5-round fight swayed my decision. But I think Angelo could win on points if she just avoids getting taken down and could keep it standing. But I think the pressure that Dern keeps on her, I think eventually she's going to get it to the ground at one point, whether it's early or whether it's late. And I just still don't trust the improvements that Hill has made. I think she could get subbed out. Even if she doesn't, I think she could lose dominantly in those rounds and then maybe even lose a decision, even though I think it's unlikely that Dern will actually win by points. But yeah, this is a tough main event for me. There's a few fights on the card that I'm very confident in, or the majority of the fights actually have a pretty good read on, I feel, but a couple of them, like this Dern fight, the Cody versus Godinez, and then maybe like Latifi versus Nosmento, those are the ones that I think I don't really have the greatest reads on. But thanks for watching, guys. This was the full card breakdown and prediction video, and hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like I said at the beginning of the video, though, this week I am doing a promotion on the Patreon. I'm going to be giving away 1 week free trial. So this week I do have 13 bets up. It's one of my most bet UFC cards of the year, and I'm pretty confident that we're going to make some pretty good money on this card. I like a lot of the reads that I have already and some of the props that I have bet. So definitely recommend you go over to the Patreon and check that out. As far as the play of the week for this card, I'm not going to do a part of the week. I'm just going to give you guys a play of the week with Andre Fialo money line. And for my most confident pick, I'll say Natalia Silva to win it. Or I guess actually that Natalia Silva's minus 1,000. That sucks to give you guys that. So for my most confident pick, I'll say that Shabazian versus Hernandez doesn't go to decision. I think that it's at like minus 280. I think that's a pretty confident play for me there to parlay up for you guys if you want to parlay it. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to hit up the video with some interaction, some comments, some likes. I would really appreciate that. And then if you want to support the channel on the Patreon, that's awesome. So, yep, guys, I'll talk to you guys later. And make sure to stay plugged into the channel.